The Journal of the Witch, Jack Stormrider. Spring, Week 3. Just as I was brewing some tea, a young sword maiden came knocking at my door. She had burned her hand in the hollow on a trap. Her name is Oriel of Rannoch, a local girl. She assured me she knew what she was doing. She was just caught by surprise is all. I had no doubt in her abilities. Anyone could tell by the faint scars, new stitches on her gambeson, and how well the longsword on her side was kept, that she was quite the adventurer. Her eyes were this beautiful shade of green. It was... Anyway. Case 3. Adventurer Troubles. Patient name, Oriel of Rannoch. Job, adventurer, sword maiden. Ailment, baker's blisters. Reagents needed, surgeon's sap, hiker's helper. I'll be mixing up a cream to soothe the burns. Luckily, I have a nurse willow in the garden. I told her I would be back as soon as I can from a trip to the mountain and that she could make herself at home. I climb halfway up the trail and come across an old shrine. I decide to rest and catch my breath. It's a small shrine carved from whatever stone makes up the cliff I rest under. It has a small statue depicting a maiden with sword in one hand and a scythe in the other. No writing to speak of on it. I think I'll have to ask Aura about it. Nestled around the shrine, I find some hiker's helper. I decide to look for any of the farmer's pigs while up here, none to be found. As I looked, some stones gave way and disturbed a gull drake nest, and I ran as fast as I could. Their claws got me a few times. Lovely beasts, though. Their feathers are this most vibrant shades. I decide I best go home rather than tempt fate a second time. Blister ointment. Surgeon's sap. Raw for burn and sweet. Hiker's helper. Boiled for pain. Take hiker's helper in a cauldron and fill just above the leaves with the water. Then boil. Once the leaves are boiled, move into a bowl and stir in raw surgeon's sap. Wrap burns with leaves for 20 minutes. Once the leaves applied, Orla and I chatted. She had some wonderful insights on that shrine. Apparently, it's to an old god of war and harvest named Lokad. She is to be called on in times of defense and famine, a temperate goddess who only acts for those who stand for their homes. Apparently, this shrine is where Orla decided to become an adventurer. She makes a weekly pilgrimage up the mountain to visit and pray. She added that there were a dozen more shrines. After the time was up, I helped unwrap her hands, and she told me that if I ever needed help, I could find her at the tavern and hire her, as well as if I just wanted to talk to her. I thanked her and said I would keep that in mind, and there was this awkward pause, and I think we both blushed. She paid her silver and tested out her sword arm before leaving. I decided to head down to the village to buy a sickle to help with my foraging. While I was in the village, a postal harpy gave me a letter from the Museum of Magic. They requested one of each regent from RyderOnStorm. Once I send them all, I will receive a collection completion certificate. I suppose it wouldn't hurt. I decided to send them some surgeon sap, as I have plenty. And I found myself visiting the village a few times this week, actually. The postal harpy even dropped a small package into my arms. It was marked from my father. He wished me well and said any man, witch or no, in good standing, should have a nice pipe, and so it was a simple wooden pipe and tobacco pouch. While I've never smoked before, I am happy to know he cares and worries after me. I don't think I've heard from him since I left for my apprenticeship, in all honesty. Anyway, I took Brim. Oh, that's right, my familiar and I finally decided on its name. It's Brim. With me to the Copper Fox for dinner and a few pints of ale. We sat at the table and Mr. Miller brought over some ale and some stew. Orla was sitting with some other adventurers and I waved, but I think she missed it. I decided to try my new pipe, but as I was struggling to light, Mr. Miller sat across from me. "First time, lad?" he asked. "Yes, my father sent it to me. Came in the mail today." He nodded. "'Tis a nice one. Looks like ashwood. You're packing it a bit too tight, though." He showed me how, and we talked about the weather. He asked about how he liked the village. I asked about Aurelia and promptly regretted it. "Oh, taking a liking, did ya?" Mr. Miller chuckled. "Why don't I call her over here?" "Please don't," I managed. The ale must have gone to my head. I could feel my ears turning red. Mr. Miller laughed. "I wouldn't do that to you, lad. She's a nice lass, though. Strong arm, stronger will." "I found an old golem up on the mountain." I changed the subject. "Aye, did you know? I think I've heard of it. What about it?" "I'm fixing it up. It's a shame to let such an amazingly crafted thing turn to ash." From there, I spilled into details on the work I did, and Mr. Miller was polite, if not interested, and after a few more rounds, he sent me home. The following morning, after I nursed my hangover, I packed a bag and told Brim to lead anyone who came looking for me to check the mountain. I headed off with supplies and new vigor to fix that ancient thing. I spent about 4 days up there, cleaning, fixing, reinscribing. At night by my campfire, I spent time staring at the stars. They're so clear out here, and had some spare pages and made some wonderful star charts. They sit so nice on my wall, and I may end up taking time to make more. End report.